Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. The year is roughly 15,000 years ago. The world is gripped by the last ice age. Massive sheets of ice cover much of North America, glaciers grinding down mountains and carving valleys. The wind howls like a living thing, blasting snow sideways across the tundra. There are no warm houses, no central heating, no emergency blankets to pull out of a backpack. There is only you, your small band of people, and the knowledge that if you don't stay warm tonight, you won't see the morning. This wasn't a rare event. This was life. For the ancestors of Native Americans, sleeping during the Ice Age wasn't about comfort. It was about survival. Every night was a test. One wrong move, a fire that burns out too early, a shelter poorly placed, a mistake in where you lie down, and your body could lose enough heat to end everything. And yet, these humans didn't just survive. They thrived. They hunted massive animals like mammoths and bison, migrated across continents, and built thriving cultures. The secret to their survival was more than brute strength. It was ingenuity. What's incredible is how much of that ingenuity still makes sense today. These early peoples used natural insulation, engineered shelters out of mammoth bones and hides, invented sleeping systems that trapped and recycled heat, and positioned themselves cleverly against wind and predators. Their nights were dangerous, but their strategies were genius. So, how did they do it? How did Ice Age ancestors sleep warm enough to live through winters that make today's blizzards look like minor inconveniences? Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to uncover their survival playbook, their shelters, fires, furs, and techniques that would still impress modern survival experts. And maybe by the end, you'll not only admire their brilliance, but also feel a little less afraid of the next power outage or storm that knocks out your heat. Let's step into the Ice Age and lie down beside the fire where our ancestors dreamed their way into the future. Before we talk about sleeping, we have to understand what they were sleeping in. The Ice Age wasn't a single wall of ice covering everything. It was a world of contrasts. Yes, glaciers dominated large swaths of Canada and the northern US, but in other regions there were windswept plains, steppe grasslands, and boreal forests. Temperatures often plunged well below freezing for months at a time, with storms that could bury everything in snow. For early Native American ancestors, often called Paleo-Indians or Clovis people, this meant constantly adapting. They were nomadic, following herds of mammoth, bison, and caribou. That meant no permanent houses. Everything they built had to be portable, temporary, and effective. Nights were their most vulnerable time. During the day, they could stay warm by moving, hunting, or building fires. But at night, when they lay still, the risk of hypothermia shot up. They needed shelter from wind, insulation from frozen ground, and a way to stay dry, because wetness was a death sentence. Understanding this context is crucial because it shows why their sleeping solutions were so sophisticated. They weren't just looking for a soft place to lie down. They were designing miniature survival systems. One of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries from Ice Age North America and Eurasia is the Mammoth Bone House. These weren't mere piles of bones, they were carefully engineered shelters. Hunters would gather massive mammoth bones, tusks, femurs, skulls, and arrange them in circles or domes, then drape them with animal hides to form windproof walls. Some had entryways designed to face away from prevailing winds, reducing drafts. Inside, these shelters were surprisingly cozy. Bones acted as a strong frame that held heavy hides in place. The hides themselves were layered, sometimes with moss or grass stuffed in between to trap heat. Fires were built in the center, and the heat radiated off the bones and warmed the space. Excavations even reveal organized sleeping areas, depressions in the ground lined with furs, sometimes with raised edges to keep out drafts. Imagine lying down inside one of these at night. Outside, the wind screams across the tundra. Inside, you have glowing firelight, the smell of smoke and hides, and the soft insulation of furs beneath you. These bone houses were portable enough to rebuild seasonally, but sturdy enough to last for weeks or months. They were Ice Age engineering masterpieces. Fire wasn't optional. It was life. But in Ice Age conditions, keeping a fire going all night took skill. Paleo-Indians mastered techniques for long-burning hearths. They used slow-burning logs, dung fuel when wood was scarce, and carefully banked coals with ash to keep embers alive until morning. Sleeping near the fire required careful placement. Too far, and you'd freeze. Too close, and your hides could catch fire. Archaeological evidence shows that people often dug shallow fire pits, lined them with stones to radiate heat, and sometimes built small reflector walls of stone or bone to bounce heat back toward the sleepers. Fire also provided security. Predators like wolves and saber-toothed cats were less likely to approach a fire-lit camp. That meant people could actually sleep, instead of staying up in constant vigilance. Fires weren't just for warmth. They were psychological anchors that made the night survivable. One of the greatest dangers at night was conductive heat loss, losing body heat to the frozen ground. Paleo-Indians solved this with insulation layers. First came a base of brush, branches, or even mammoth hide stretched on the ground. On top of that, they piled grasses, moss, or pine boughs to create an insulating mattress. Finally, they laid furs or hides on top for softness and additional warmth. In some sites, archaeologists have found evidence of raised sleeping platforms made of wood and bone. Elevating sleepers even a few inches off the ground drastically reduced heat loss. These platforms may have been lined with fur and shared by multiple people, allowing body heat to pool and create a warmer microclimate. Sleeping together was itself a survival technique. Families huddled, children between adults, everyone sharing warmth. It was less about personal space and more about survival space. Clothing was part of the sleeping system. Paleo-Indians made use of multiple layers of hide clothing. Inner layers from softer hides like rabbit or deer, outer layers from tougher animals like bison or caribou. At night, they didn't strip down. They often slept in their clothes, wrapping themselves in additional furs. Hooded cloaks, fur-lined boots, and mittens helped keep extremities warm. And sometimes people even slept with their hands tucked under their arms and knees drawn up to conserve heat. The key was trapping warm air close to the body and keeping moisture away from skin. Furs were selected with care. Winter hides with thick underfur were prized for bedding. Sometimes, skins were sewn together into giant communal blankets, making early versions of sleeping bags. When no mammoth bone houses were available, people still had options. Snow itself could be a shelter. Like the Inuit igloo, snow shelters could be carved from hard-packed drifts or created by piling snow and hollowing it out. Snow is a surprisingly good insulator. Inside a snow shelter, temperatures often stay near freezing, even when it's much colder outside. Simpler windbreaks could also make a huge difference. Hunters could stack brush, bones, or snow to block the wind on one side, build a fire on the other, and sleep in the calmer pocket of air between them. Even a small reduction in wind chill could mean the difference between frostbite and survival. Sleeping wasn't a solo activity. Bands of people often slept close together, not just for warmth, but for security. Someone might stay awake as a watch, rotating shifts through the night. Children were placed in the center of sleeping groups, protected by the bodies of adults. Communal sleeping also conserved resources. One fire could keep everyone warm if the group stayed close enough. Heat from multiple bodies raised the overall temperature of the shelter, creating a shared pocket of warmth. This practice also reinforced social bonds. Nighttime was a time for quiet storytelling, low conversations, and teaching. Children would fall asleep to the sound of elders recounting myths and survival lessons. Oral tradition passed down by firelight while the storm howled outside. Another clever technique? Eat before sleeping. Consuming fat and protein-rich meals right before bed provided slow-burning internal heat as the body digested food overnight. This is why marrow, fat, and pemmican-like mixtures were highly valued. They kept people warmer for longer. Some evidence suggests people stored heated stones under hides or near their feet to provide extra warmth through the first few hours of sleep. Combined with a full belly, this made the difference between a comfortable night and a dangerous one. Not all Ice Age ancestors lived in the exact same conditions. Those in the Great Plains faced different challenges from those in the Pacific Northwest or High Rockies. Coastal peoples relied on driftwood shelters and whalebone frames. Inland hunters built semi-subterranean pit houses when staying in one place longer. Adaptability was the real key. People adjusted their sleeping methods to match local conditions, always prioritizing warmth, dryness, and efficiency. This flexibility was what allowed humans to spread so widely during the Ice Age. They didn't just endure one environment, they conquered dozens. What's striking is how relevant these ancient methods still are. Modern survival experts teach the same principles. Insulate from the ground, block wind, trap heat, share warmth, eat high-calorie food before bed. The difference is that Ice Age people didn't learn this in a classroom. They learned it from life and death. These lessons remind us that survival isn't just about gear. It's about knowledge, community, and respect for the environment. We have modern sleeping bags and tents, but if those fail, the wisdom of our ancestors could still save us. So, how did ancient Native Americans sleep through the Ice Age? They engineered shelters from bones and hides, built clever fires, insulated themselves from the frozen ground, wore layered furs, ate for warmth, and huddled together to share body heat. They turned the wild, icy world into a place where dreams were possible. This story isn't just about the past. It's about resilience, ingenuity, and the simple truth that human beings have always been problem solvers. The next time you crawl under a warm blanket or complain about a chilly night, think about them, sleeping under a hide roof with a fire smoldering low, trusting their community and their knowledge to carry them to sunrise. If this journey into the Ice Age gave you a new appreciation for our ancestors' genius, hit that like button so more people see it. Subscribe for more deep dives into ancient survival, medieval resilience, and forgotten technologies that still hold power today. And let me know in the comments, which Ice Age survival trick surprised you the most? The mammoth bone houses? The heated stones? The idea of eating for warmth? Share your thoughts, and maybe next time you face a cold night, you'll sleep like a Paleo-Indian, knowing that humanity has been conquering winter for tens of thousands of years.